So here we are in my favorite program of the year still, in EML, looking at all our conditioning. So yesterday we had a discussion about shame, which was very honest and interesting to look at. I think that this looking at the conditioning, when I kind of observe the group and everybody, some people are like kind of exhausted feeling afterwards maybe, or just a lot coming up and everything. And I remember the first year we had this program when we really, some of us saw the conditioning we had. I remember for myself, I had to just kind of go lay down out in the grass for a while and kind of recover maybe. And what I am happy to see is that by doing this every year, there's quite a bit of change in my mind. And I recognize when I look at the different conditioning I've had, sometimes I hear, oh, here's that same old story coming up, you know? And that's to me a sign, like I haven't really examined this well or right. And I see quite a shift in that, actually, in terms of being able to look at these things differently. And I guess it's the process of it that I'm kind of been reflecting on for the last, since that discussion about like, what makes that work? What makes this a useful process? And for my own mind, my own experience, the process of letting go of things, memories or whatever, doesn't come so easily. And when Ageshe was here once, he said that if I tell you there's not a snake, if I'm in a room and somebody tells me there's not an elephant in this room, it won't help me if I think for my fear of the snake in the room. I have to see there's not a snake in the room. And so for me, looking at this conditioning, it's been a process of learning how to look at the past and see all, you know, instead of with this narrow view of like what you were saying this morning, like a frozen memory, it's kind of a very narrow mind that's holding on to a few details, a few, you know, visual memories, a few feelings, kind of got it all packaged. And I might even say it the same way again, then I know I'm in trouble. It's a mind that's actually able to look at it with a kind of a clarity and awareness, you know, just with a feeling of awareness. So it's not like if the feelings rise, it's like letting them be, not suppressing them, but not getting to the place where they flood the mind, and just being able to look back and then see the whole scene with a much bigger perspective, which I think is really the perspective of how all these situations are really huge dependent arising with so many causes and conditions, and the mind that can't get over, can't move forward, is somehow looking way too narrowly. And so the mind that can be aware and look back, it has like a freshness feeling to it, and it's able to bring more wisdom in and not be overrun by emotions or squishing them down. So that's what it seems like to me in terms of looking at shame yesterday, because shame is, as we all decided, and all our definitions of it, was pretty much something that you pretty much bury, you don't want to look at, it's difficult. And so then I was really wondering what that was about, like what is shame mostly related to? And in my own thinking about it, I think it's mostly related to ignorance, which is what makes it even maybe more difficult. So I didn't get the sense in my mind, like my experiences that I was looking at were so much based on attachment or aversion. They really seemed like there was a lot of ignorance in the mind, and a lot of that was in a huge context that, say, when you're a child, you really can't understand fully. You're not like equipped, right? You're not well enough developed. Like structure and function go together, and your brain is maturing. You might have a mind that's gone through countless lifetimes, but still it's put in this body, and the mind of a child is a young brain, a young body, and doesn't have all the capacities. So you need to protect children in the same way that we need to protect ourselves as adults, and that we now do for ourselves. And so this led me to thinking about how important it is to consider what Venerable Children had told me some years ago, that I wrote down. This one little part is, what is going on in the mind is important. At death, what is going on in the mind will direct our rebirth. Whatever karma ripens, we will discern in a way dependent on what's going on in our mind. And I wasn't thinking that way when I moved here, that's for sure. And so I think when we look at our conditioning, having that bigger perspective in mind is quite important. And the seventh Dalai Lama said, during death, the bardo, and the rebirth process, the impressions collected in this life will hold great power over you. And then he also said that, led by death, only karmic memories follow. Look now to what you will do, alone and friendless, wandering through the great path of the bardo, that long, narrow, treacherous path. And then he also mentions this thing that relates, I think, to conditioning again, and why it's important that we look at this. He says, when comes the time to carry the load of life through death's door, one can take neither relatives, friends, servants, nor possessions. Attached mind is instinctual mind. Abandon attachment. And so this, I think, is like one of the great values of taking the time that we are in this program to look at our conditioning, so that we don't let ourselves just kind of run on this automatic. If you think about it, it was like instinctual. Is that really the right translation there? But in a way, you know, if you look at when we talk about the instincts in an animal, in a way we have that as an instinct, in a sense, our attachment. It's maybe, it feels pretty hardwired. Do we all want happiness? We don't want to suffer. And so to try to break through this is going to take tremendous effort. But having a view that values the time that we're spending doing this, looking at our conditioning, finding out how our mind works, and then finding the tools to look at it. I'm sure everyone will be a little bit different in the process, but we can see that it's quite important what's going on in our mind, and we need to do it today so that tomorrow we don't end up just running after whatever's in our mind, should we be meeting the moment of our death or any situation.